Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra and this is Balancedskein, where I talk about all of the yarny things. Oh goodness, I forgot something. I need to stay hydrated. Yes, today I want to do a bit of a knit and chat. I haven't done these often. In fact, I recall only doing this once in the past as a way to celebrate hitting 1,000 subscribers. I did sort of a Q&A. I don't think I've done it since then. So this is fun. The knit is the second sleeve of my pitch coat, which is a design by Emily Green. I am using Hudson & West Forge in the color Camel. And I am very close to finishing the sleeve and being able to assemble the garment. So that's exciting. The chat is Rhinebeck. So for those of you who are not familiar with Rhinebeck, outside of it being a city in the state of New York, it is a nickname for the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. And I was lucky enough to attend last year in 2022. It was the first time I had ever attended the festival, and it was shortly after I even learned what it was. So that was exciting. And Rhinebeck as an experience has sort of evolved over the years to include several other events that sort of happen the Friday leading up to the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, which only happens the Saturday and Sunday of that weekend. But the Friday before, there are a number of events that occur. And many knitters, crocheters, spinners alike make a whole weekend event out of it and attend all of the events, all of the fiber focused events that have cropped up around the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. It intrigued me, and I almost immediately decided it was something that I wanted to do at some point in the future, but I didn't make any concrete plans. And in the weeks leading up to the festival last year, I think it was the Q&A that I filmed. One of the questions I received was from Jamie of M1 Yarns, and she asked, "Hey girl, you going to Rhinebeck?" To which I responded, "No, I'm not." And then she promptly slid into my DMs, inviting me to be her Rhinebeck roomie because they had an open room in their house. I think somebody canceled and wasn't able to attend. And I just went for it and I attended. And there was room for one more. We made it work, and I invited my friend Felicia. So Felicia and I got to attend Rhinebeck weekend last year, and it was so exciting. Now, before I get into the rest of this video, really what I'm going to be sharing is the things I remember, because I'm at this point 1 year removed from the whole experience, and I didn't really document anything about the experience. I didn't do like a Rhinebeck recap video. I kind of went on the trip with no intention of sitting down and regaling my experience. And part of that was because I know it's like a mecca for all of the fiber enthusiasts and fiber influencers. And I felt like nobody needed another Rhinebeck recap. I don't know. I guess I've had a change of heart on that, and I decided I would make a video chatting about it. So Felicia and I booked a trip and made it happen. We booked our flights, and the rest is history. So we booked flights for early Thursday morning, with the intent of flying into, I think we flew into LaGuardia, and spent the day exploring New York City for a few hours before driving the couple hours up to where our rental house was. Landed, got our rental car, parked somewhere in Brooklyn, and sort of walked around to see a few things. Nothing major. It was a really rainy day. I do remember that. It was drizzling on and off the whole time. We went to a cafe to sit, have a little drinky drink, and for me to charge my phone. And from there, we went to 2 or 3 yarn stores in the Brooklyn area. I don't remember all of them except for, of course, Brooklyn General. So we did go to Brooklyn General, didn't buy anything there, but it was a really cute shop and I'm glad we went. And after we did our exploring, I think we got lunch, we decided to make the drive north to whatever the town was our house was in. It was not Rhinebeck. It was maybe 15 to 20 minutes away from the fairgrounds where the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival happens. So we made that drive. It was the most stressful drive of my entire life. I get anxious just thinking about it. And poor Felicia, she probably thought I was gonna kill us. That may be one of the first times I've ever been behind the wheel with her, with me. So that had to have been an experience for her. But for one, I remember there being like really bad stop and go traffic coming out of the city. And then it started to rain pretty heavily when we got off of the expressway and we were in the sort of, I consider rural area where the house was. Not nearly as many street lights as I was accustomed to having being from a city. A lot of twisty, windy roads. And it was dark at this point. So I think we made it to the house like maybe 10 p.m. And yeah, it was pouring down rain, winding roads, no street lights. And there were several points during the drive where it went from a 2-way, 2-lane street down to like 1-way to get under a narrow bridge underpass. And I've never experienced that in my life as a driver. So that really threw me off. And I was like, if we go through here, how are we going to know if there's a car on the other side? Like, what if somebody rams us head on at full speed? Like what? So that was really stressful and I wanted to cry. We were warmly greeted by our lovely housemates. And then Friday morning, bright and early, we got up to attend 3 back-to-back events. The first of which was Untangled. Untangled was cool. It was kind of smaller. There were 2, it was in an outdoor sort of park area. And there were 2 sections where vendors were set up in these sort of covered gazebo areas. Maybe like 15 to 20 vendors in each area. I didn't know what to expect, but it was a good time. We showed up and my whole motivation for even going to Untangled was to see Hudson and West and get my hands on some of the Rhinebeck weekend exclusive colorways that they had put out for the event. I bought 2 sweater quantities from them, and one was in the colorway mustard and the other was in the colorway mallard. I haven't knit with either of the yarns I got from Hudson and West that day, but hopefully soon I'll be able to use it. And I met Megan Babin, Sloan Rosenthal, Emily Green, who is the designer of this pattern that I'm knitting on right now. And it was just a good time. They really seem to have warm, welcoming personalities, and they were like the cornerstone vendor of the event. Like when we walked into the first covered area, their booth was the biggest and busiest right as you walked in. And to be totally honest, I don't remember any of the other vendors that were at Untangled. I do vaguely remember there being a lot of hand-dyed and superwash, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not really my thing personally. So nothing else at Untangled really stood out to me. But I'm really glad I went to get my hands on some Hudson & West, and that's the only thing I bought at Untangled. We didn't spend a whole lot of time there. There wasn't really a lot going on outside of the vendor booths to keep people engaged, really. And that's one thing I will say I didn't love about Untangled and one of the other events we went to. But it's okay. I mean, if you're going there just to shop from some of your favorite small business fiber focused makers, then it's worth it. I can't remember how much the ticket was, but it wasn't much. And I'm glad I went, and I'm glad I got to see Hudson & West and experience that. But I will say, thinking back, if Hudson & West wasn't vending there and didn't have those exclusive colorways, I probably would not have bothered going to Untangled. So that was event one. After Untangled, we went to Cakepalooza. Cakepalooza was similar in that there wasn't a whole lot going on outside of the vendors that were set up there. And I do also remember there being a lot of hand-dyed, a lot of bright, punchy colors. I remember Cakepalooza having more spinning fiber than Untangled. A lot of beautiful fiber. So it catered not more to spinners than knitters, but it catered to spinners a little bit more than Untangled did. And we went there towards the middle of the day leading up to lunchtime. I bought a sweater quantity from a vendor that I cannot recall, in a yarn in this gray color, was hand dyed. I used it as a main color in my Leelanau pullover, which I haven't really talked about on the channel or in general. I am likely going to end up frogging that sweater, but that could be a topic for another video. And I really don't remember much else from Cakepalooza. It was in sort of like a parking lot area, outdoors, completely outdoors. A lot of vendor booths, a lot of people had like those sort of cloth tarp like gazebo coverings over their booth. And I don't remember any of the vendors, even the vendor that I bought the yarn from. I'm so sorry. But we didn't spend a lot of time there. My social battery was draining and I was hungry and dehydrated. So I was developing a really, really bad headache, and I was kind of just over it by that point. And it had nothing to do with Cakepalooza. It was a me thing, 100%. So Felicia and I ended up cutting out early from Cakepalooza. We hit up a grocery store to get some snacks and food, and we went back to the house for like an hour or two. I think I took a nap and ate something, and I was ready to go for the next event, which was Wool & Folk. Wool & Folk was definitely one of the highlights for me. I don't remember many vendors or anything like that, but one thing that stood out to me about Wool & Folk compared to Cakepalooza and Untangled is that there was a lot more to keep you engaged outside of the actual sellers at Wool & Folk. I met Alicia Plummer. She is the sweetest. And her and Felicia are actually good Instagram friends. They, from what I understand, chat back and forth quite a bit, which is cool. We have cool knitting friends. But yeah, she was really sweet. I saw a lot more sort of fiber influencers there. I saw a lot of the same people at all three events, but I would say the highest concentration of the fiber influencers, the really popular people on Instagram and YouTube, were there. So it was, I guess you could call it a star-studded event. I saw Andrea Mowry. I didn't say anything to her because I don't know her. I feel weird meeting internet or seeing internet people in person. And I feel like that whole weekend was just prime time for my social awkwardness to just sort of show up and be present and solidify itself as a cornerstone of my personality. I saw a lot of people, didn't say hi to most of them because I'm like, why would I do that? They have no idea who I am and we wouldn't have much to talk about. So Andrea Mowry, I saw Adela, I think her name is, from Lola Bean Yarn Co. I saw Gigi Made It. I saw Michael from Piece for Piece Crafting, and we actually said hi to each other because we are familiar with each other. Like, I knew he knew who I was and I knew who he was. And ironically enough, we both live in Chicago, and that was the first time we'd ever met in person. So that was hilarious that we had to hop on a plane to finally meet in person. But he's awesome, and that was definitely one of the highlights of Woolen Folk. But yeah, there were a lot of vendors there, and the venue itself was really incredible. It was right on the Hudson River. It was this big industrial covered area, huge square footage, so there was a lot of space. The walkways were generous. I really appreciated that there was a lot of sort of breathing room. Events like this, I think, can be really crowded and overwhelming. And I felt like there were a lot of areas that were sort of isolated enough to where I can step aside and breathe. And you had that waterfront view, which was really beautiful. So I'm a meandering storyteller, so sorry if I'm getting off topic. But yeah, one of the things I said is like, there's a lot happening at Woolen Folk to keep your attention outside of just vendors with their booth setups where you can buy things. Like, I appreciate that, and of course that's the main attraction. But one thing I felt was lacking with Untangled and Cakepalooza is that that's all that was there. You couldn't get a little snacky snack. There wasn't any substantial areas where you can just sit, cool off, decompress. It was just like vendors, and then that's it. But at Woolen Folk, there was a whole open area of like picnic benches and food trucks, and it was kind of away from the hustle and bustle of the shopping area. And I believe like on another part of the venue, there was like a stage set up with music that you could enjoy, like live music. I think there was a band there at some point. So that was really nice. And again, seating and open areas along the waterfront itself. And I just enjoyed it a lot more because there was a lot more to keep my attention other than just people selling stuff. And I feel like you need that variety to make it a well-rounded experience. I'm forgetting to knit during my knitting chat. One thing that they did have that I thought was kind of interesting was, what did they call it? A podcaster's patio, which if I understand it correctly, is just a stage-like area where the event organizers invited certain knitting podcasters to sort of sit there and I think do a panel, which, I mean, okay, but like, why? Something about it felt very cringe. So I steered clear from that area. I just wasn't interested in seeing what that was about. But other than that, I think the vibes at Woolen Folk were immaculate and definitely one of the top highlights of the trip for me. I bought one sweater quantity there, I believe, and some buttons from whatever vendor Alicia Plummer was helping out. But But yeah, Woollen Folk was great. And it was the last event of the day for us. And I can't remember what the official end time was, but I do remember the sun was setting while we were there, which, by the way, was a beautiful thing to see over the Hudson River. So that was it. That was the Friday of Rhinebeck weekend. That night, I think we ordered Indian food and ate and chat, and it was a jolly good time. And we got up bright and early Saturday morning for the actual New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. We got up early. Felicia and I went before the rest of our housemates went. We had our own rental car, so logistically, that wasn't really an issue. And Jamie actually rode with us because she wanted to see the fleece barn. So if you've never been, and I'm not a spinner, so I don't have the inside scoop on the hype around fleeces. I couldn't tell you what a good fleece was if it slapped me in the face. But apparently the fleece barn is like a hot commodity for all of the spinners in the know. Felicia really wanted to get there early to get her hands on a good fleece before all of the good fleeces got snatched up. And it kind of required you to get there as soon as the doors open, which I can't remember if it was 8 or 9. I'm pretty sure it was 9 o'clock, but I could be wrong. Anyway, we got there. Felicia got her fleece. I'm pretty sure I have a picture of her holding it in the bag. I am not good at knitting while talking. So that was a good time. And from there, we sort of meandered through and explored the other vendors, the other, I guess, businesses vending at the festival. It was overwhelming. Saturday was not my cup of tea. Saturday of the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, way too many people. Like, we got there early before the surge of people came. But by the time Felicia got her fleece and we made our first pass through the vendors, it quickly became unbearably crowded. Shoulder to shoulder people. You couldn't really shop and enjoy and browse because you're just swimming through a sea of people at every booth, especially the more popular businesses. I do remember Harrisville Designs being a particularly crowded booth. They had a massive setup. Like, their booth spanned 3 normal booths lengthwise, I think. And I've always wanted to try their yarn, but I was too overwhelmed at that point. And by the time Saturday of Rhinebeck came around, I was like 4 or 5 sweater quantities deep. So I don't know if I had the space in my suitcase and the budget to really buy any more yarn. Like, I felt like I crossed some kind of line that I didn't know was there. And I didn't buy anything for the rest of the weekend. So I didn't buy any yarn at the actual New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, which is crazy because I was kind of the main attraction of the weekend. But anyway, yeah, shoulder to shoulder, swimming through people. It was really, really overwhelming. And I think it took away a lot from my experience. That was the biggest low light for me, is just the swarms and swarms of people, which on one hand, I'm happy that an event like this is popular enough to attract so many people and to really keep the community going. Like, I appreciate that aspect of it. But if I could do it all over again, I would just not go this Saturday and only go on Sunday. I think a lot of the attraction too was the whole meetup on the hill, which is, to call it a hill is a generous statement. Okay. It was like a slight grassy slope. But the meetup on the hill, a lot of popular podcasters and designers and makers were coordinating meetups on the hill at various points in the day. I wasn't really plugged into the goings on of that, but one that stuck out to me was the Andrea Mowry meetup. Apparently she does this every year at Rhinebeck. She'll design a sweater that's like specifically for Rhinebeck, and a lot of people who like Andrea Mowry will knit that pattern and show up wearing that pattern, and they take one big picture on the hill. That was eerie. Like, that was some sci-fi stuff. It's just weird to see so many people wearing the same thing. Like, and it's not just like 20 or 30 people, like 100 plus people wearing the same sweater and then gathering together. Really weird. But hey, they looked like they were having the time of their lives, and I love that for them. All right, so my food is here, so let's wrap this up. Like I said, if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't bother going. I mean, we went for the fleeces in the morning, so if I knew what that day was gonna be, I would have done the fleeces with Felicia and then gone elsewhere to do other things for the rest of the day. But it is what it is. Sunday of Rhinebeck, or the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, that's a mouthful. Sunday was a lot calmer. Like, it was like a totally different event. If I had to guess, it's the day where all of the people more local to the area decide to go, because yeah, all of the hype all the hype gets put out of the way on Saturday. Everybody gets that out of their system. And I think the people who go to Rhinebeck to actually shop and not go to show their face and to rub shoulders with the who's who of the knitting community, they come on Sunday. And those are my people. It was so chill. It was like a totally different event. I was gobsmacked at how different the Sunday of Rhinebeck was. And again, I didn't buy anything on the second day either. At least I don't think I did. Nothing in terms of yarn specifically. But yeah, we went on Sunday. We didn't get up and go early again. And we spent a couple hours there on Sunday because our flight was later that night. So we packed all our bags on Sunday, went to the festival, and from there we went straight to catch our flight. One thing I appreciated about Rhinebeck, similar to Wool and Folk, was all of the other things going on there that sort of grab your interest and make it worth being there as like a day-long thing. Outside of just people selling stuff, there were food trucks, various food and drink vendors in a specific area. And there was also where the spinning competitions took place. They had a lot of different like competitions that you could enter, and they were open to spectators. So that was interesting to watch. And in that same sort of building, there were still vendors, but they were like dry goods vendors or woodworkers or handmade soap or, various spices. So there was a way more of a variety of vendors at the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival than at the other 3 events that we went to. So that was refreshing to be able to see more of a variety of things that I could buy. Yeah, Sunday was short and sweet. We didn't spend the whole day there. We had to make the drive back to New York City to catch our flight, which we came very close to missing. Like, it wasn't down to the wire, but the traffic was absolutely terrible going back into New York City. I think traffic in and out of the city in general, I'm realizing, is probably just not the best. If I had to rank the events from most enjoyed to least enjoyed, at the top of the list will be Wool and Folk, hands down. Number 2 would be Sunday of the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. Number 3 would be Untangled. 4 would be Saturday of the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. And in last place is Cakepalooza. Sorry. But yeah, that is my experience in a nutshell. When I go again, because I absolutely would love to go in 2024, if the cards don't stack in my favor, maybe 2025, 2026, whatever. At least one more time in my lifetime, I would like to make that trip again and then do it the right way. For one, I wouldn't fly into LaGuardia and drive from New York City. I would fly into one of the surrounding cities and drive from there. I mean, one thing I love about that area of the United States is there are a lot of cities very close together with their own airports. I would fly in somewhere else and bypass New York City altogether, unless I wanted to make a longer trip of it and spend more time in New York, which is fully on the table. But that drive, it broke me. I think it really broke me. If anything, I might fly into maybe New Jersey. Is that a thing people do? And if I wanted to spend some time in the city, just drive there. I just don't have any interest on ever driving from New York City to Rhinebeck ever in my life again. Ever. So if I can organize a trip, spend some time in New York City, and somehow get to Rhinebeck without having to make the drive myself, maybe take a train, maybe carpool, I don't know. But yeah, I would not drive between New York and Rhinebeck. I just wouldn't bother. The other thing I would do differently is I wouldn't bother going to the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival on this Saturday. I would bypass Saturday entirely, maybe find some trails, a park to go to, some type of other activity on the Saturday, and then on Sunday I would go to Rhinebeck. I would not go to Cakepalooza, and I would go to Untangled only if Hudson and West does exclusive colorways again. And I would absolutely go to Wool and Folk, and I would probably prioritize it so that I spend as much time as possible that Friday at Wool and Folk over the other two events. And other than that, I think it was an overall really happy, positive experience for me. I would do it again. I want to go back. And I want to visit Brooklyn General Store again and actually buy something there. It was just a really cute shop, and they had some yarns that I was familiar with from the internet, but never got the chance to squish in person until that trip. So if you are experiencing Rhinebeck FOMO right now, hopefully this helped soothe you a little bit to hear my experience, or maybe it just made the FOMO worse, in which case I'm sorry. Let me know if you like the knit and chat format and would like me to make a video like this again. And let me know if you plan to go to Rhinebeck, and if so, is it your first time? And if you've gone before, let me know if you agree with any of the experiences that I shared with you. Would love to have just a conversation in the comments. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much for keeping me company while I knit 5 rows of this sleeve. This is not as productive of a knit and chat as I was anticipating, but you know, it is what it is. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.